These last few months have been a very busy time, and so I have not been out on as many train trips as usual. Add this to the dry spell in local RCP&E freight, and I have not made a whole lot of videos this year. During this last month of May, I have been out to see more trains, and I have gathered quite a bit of footage that I will combine into this video and narrate like a rail expedition video. This month has a lot of short clips from various places, so there will be a lot of jumping around. And for the sake of putting all of the photos on my website, this video will technically be considered Rail Expedition number 23. First, on the 6th of May, we have a westbound RCP&E freight headed back to Huron. I initially caught it just west of Brookings, but I decided to chase it west and get a better shot. Here I am west of Arlington. I went to a gravel road to get a more open shot. As usual, it was a very windy and overcast day. I decided to try to catch it a third time, now just east of Lake Preston. I wanted to get a more distant view of the train as it went along the lake. I was unfamiliar with the local dirt roads, so I picked a random one that went towards the track. I ended up a little too far away for the iPhone zoom to be effective, but the scenery is very nice. On the 15th, I was in Sioux Falls for unrelated reasons, but I had some time to do a quick check of the local rail yards. Usually it's just the same old EMD switchers, but today there was a local job that had a BNSF 600 series -9 with Santa Fe paint. I've seen plenty of 700 series fake bonnets, but this was my first genuine Santa Fe catch. Also notable is number 3125, a mostly unmodified GP50 that was built for the BN in 1985. I then stopped by the quarry to see the Ellis and Eastern engines that were out. I'm trying to gather some footage of E&E so that I can make a video about them in the future, but progress is slow. Today is my first time seeing number 7, an SW1200 built in 1957, so that's another one off the list. On the 16th, I needed to go to Buffalo, Minnesota to get some free stuff from Facebook Marketplace. What I saw that day could have been made into a separate rail expedition video, but there wouldn't have been a very long one. I didn't see much until I got to Granite Falls. For the first time, I happened to be there when a Twin Cities and Western train was running a day job. For those who don't know, the Twin Cities and Western is a short line that started in 1991 and runs a line from the Twin Cities Western, if you can believe it. The main line goes about as far as Appleton, Minnesota, with trackage rights into South Dakota. They are also the parent company to the Minnesota Prairie Line and the Sisseton and Millbank Railroad, in addition to being closely tied to the Red River Valley and Western Railroad. Here at Granite Falls Energy is a mixed freight led by 3 of many older EMD road switchers found in TC&W's roster. The first and third locomotives are common GP38-2s, but the second has something extra about it. Our RVW 2053 was a GP20 built in 1960 for the Great Northern. After some time on the Burlington Northern, it was rebuilt by Generation 2 Locomotive Company. Generation 2 ended up rebuilding a few different types of EMD locomotives with newer Caterpillar engines during the 1980s and 90s. They rebuilt 10 of Burlington Northern's GP20s with Caterpillar 3516 engines. Many of Generation 2's CAT rebuilds later ended up on both the Twin Cities and Western and the Red River Valley and Western railroads. Speaking of rebuilds, I found myself in Maple Lake, Minnesota on my way to Buffalo. I found a local CP job being run by 5024, an SD30C Eco. Canadian Pacific has rebuilt many old EMD road switchers to be more efficient and reliable. This particular locomotive used to be an SD40-2, but it now has a V12 EMD 710 prime mover. It produces the same amount of horsepower as it did before, but more cleanly. When I finally made it into Buffalo, there was a westbound. I moved east to Rockford, where the local had run off to. It spent plenty of time blocking the road as it worked, and I even caught it on a nice big train bridge. On my way home, when I was still following the Paynesville subdivision, I came across an eastbound. Besides the typical GE Power, there was a Kansas City Southern SD70 Max second in position. There was a southbound leaving Wilmer around the time I was passing through, so I set up in Raymond, Minnesota to see it in full. Now back to some local activity. 3 days later, I ran outside to the sound of an eastbound. I hate to film so many trains at this same co-op, but this is my default location when I only have a few seconds to get out the door. On the 21st, there was a 7-engine train in Aurora. I showed up when they were doing some switching, so I only got a video of the engines by themselves. Later that day, I went to Marshall, Minnesota. The local industrial complex has a Genset locomotive that happened to be running that day. Clearly, this is a former EMD road switcher, but there is very little information about 1505. I can say that it is a Motive Power Industries MP1500D with a Caterpillar 1512A engine that produces 1400 horsepower. Later, I found a 6-engine BNSF train that I first filmed in Green Valley, which is just north of Marshall. On the 27th of May, I took a road trip up the side of Minnesota for no particular reason. I followed several BNSF lines and saw a few co-op locomotives. Here is UFC 136, an SW 1200 built in 1965. Then in Herman, I saw a pair of former BNSF SD40-2s. I've seen a few of these NREX SD40-2s at various grain elevators in Minnesota, but I can't imagine what an elevator would need 6,000 horsepower for. Then there was a BNSF grain train. I need to stop getting my car in the shop. To end the day, I went to Sisseton to see one of 2 locomotives on the Sisseton and Millbank roster. This is one of those Santa Fe SW9s that got rebuilt into an SSB 1200 and later sold to Amtrak. That's all the random stuff for this month, so I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.